Okay, so our next distinguished speaker, Remi Kanazi, sitting down right now. He's a poet, a writer, and organizer based in New York City. He's the author of the new release poetry collection. It's called Before the Next Bomb Drops, Rising Up from Brooklyn to Palestine. He's also the author of Poetic Injustice, Writings on Resistance in Palestine, published by ROR, and the editor of Poets for Palestine. Remi Kanazi co-wrote a new poem, When I See Them, I See Us, with Black activist and Stanford graduate Christian Davis Bailey. The short video features figures from Lauryn Hill to Cornel West to Ahmed Abu Zunaid.
And Madi Miraz Williams from Black Youth Project 100.
His political commentary has been featured by news outlets throughout the world, including the New York Times, Salon, Al Jazeera, English, and BBC Radio. He has appeared in the Palestine Festival of Literature as well as poetry as a Poetry International. He's a Lenan Residency Fellow and is on the advisory committee for the Palestinian campaign for the academic and cultural boycott of Israel. Welcome. Thank you very much.
So I'm doing like 3 quick things. First, I'm going to perform 3 quick poems. Then we're going to show a video, and then I'm going to do a short talk. Can you hear me in the back if I perform like this? Okay. I've been going back and forth on which one I was going to start with, but I think this is my 15th show in 18 days, so if I pass out mid-poem, you can pick up the book and shout into the mic. It's not going to be much different than what I'm about to do. So I'll start with Palestine, go into solidarity, end with action. The first piece that I'm going to do, and it's hard to follow Jamal and Amanda, and there was a lot of information that you already have, so I feel like I don't have to say shit, but whatever. You can see me for the next little bit. The first piece I'm going to do is called An Empty Vessel. Now, for anybody that doesn't know in the room, in 2014, over 51 days, Israel massacred 2,300 Palestinians in the occupied Gaza Strip. It shelled hospitals, schools, mosques, churches, UN buildings, shelters, bringing devastation to the doorsteps of 1.8 million Palestinians trapped in an open-air prison. But we don't want to split it from the larger context that Palestinians are going through. Within Gaza, it's Israeli siege, blockade, settler colonialism, and occupation. In its totality, particularly when we talk within the West, within the period of October to January, the timeline only begins when an Israeli is killed or injured. But we don't talk about the Palestinian fishermen that shot at every day. We don't talk about the Palestinians that are executed in no-go zones. We don't talk about settlement expansion. We don't talk about the torture of children. We don't talk about abductions in the middle of the night. We don't talk about home demolitions, or the fact that Israel controls the air, the border, the seas, the imports, the exports, the taxes, the tariffs, every facet of life, and that settler colonialism, occupation, and apartheid is a form of daily collective violence against indigenous people. Even when we talk within this October to January period, the focus is on the violence that Israelis are facing, including many of them who are combat soldiers or settlers. But what isn't talked about is that nearly 200 Palestinians were killed in that period. Normally Palestinians are being killed 10 to 1, but even when they're being killed 4 to 1, it's not shocking enough for the Western press. More than 14,000 people were injured in a 3.5-month period. So the first piece I'm going to do, and I'll time check myself as well, is called An Empty Vessel. No more gruesome images. Nails across spaces. Generations collapsing on themselves. A father ripping through rubble, coated and blood, caved in rooftops, immersed in the feeder of death. No more cries, crashing inside ears, like cymbals. Can't unsee, can't stop from happening. This is massacre. Shijaya is everywhere. This is annihilation. Infants in pieces. This is a war crime. The beach, it's bleeding. She wants her husband back. Stop dehumanizing our men. She wants her best friend back. Stop killing our fathers. She wants her baby girl back. Stop robbing our cribs. You incinerated classrooms. The morgues, they're overflowing. Knew it was a shelter, white flags drenched in flesh, shelled the building again, children stuffed in ice cream freezers, knew what you were doing. The earth, it's still swallowing us. not the victims, not the narrator, don't get to tell us how to process our pain. You are swindlers, terrorists, fascists feeding for our limbs. Read the reports, become sick with yourselves. You are everything you levied against us. You should be ashamed. Goliath on mass graves. Yet you remain an empty vessel, striding through a sea of blood you spilled. That's like literally the happiest poem I'm doing tonight. So the next piece that I want to do, I grew up in a small town in western Massachusetts. I've lived in New York City. My parents and grandparents are refugees from 1948. But I live in New York City where under Michael Bloomberg, 5 million people were stopped and frisked. I live 11 miles from where Eric Garner was choked to death. You have racist drug laws and mandatory minimums, 2.3 million in jail and prison, the vast majority of them Black and Latino, the continued confiscation of native land and resources. So you don't actually have to go overseas to see shock and awe play. You can look in your own backyards. So whether we're talking about the execution of Sandra Bland and Mike Brown and Freddie Gray and Ayanna Jones and so many others, or we're talking about the drone bombing of Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia, 150 people drone murdered to death just a couple days ago, or we're talking about occupation and apartheid in Palestine, or sexual violence and transphobia in our local communities. I didn't come out of the womb asking to be Palestinian. So if I'm not looking in the same frame against anti-Black racism in the United States that I am looking on Palestine, then you become just a one-issue person that isn't really fighting for justice or liberation, but only gives a damn about your own shit. So I was having a conversation with someone that considered themselves liberal. And here's the thing, you don't want to say anything like racist or awkward to a poet, because that's how I wrote like 73% of my first poem. I think that's how like a lot of poets like write a lot of their poetry. And so this poem is called Nothing to Worry About. And I was having a conversation with somebody about Iraq, and I think this was about in 2009. Literally about more than 1 million Iraqis massacred, 5.5 million refugees, and his response to me was, well, the world is a messed up place. And I was like, that's so weird. You are a terrible fucking human being. I'm gonna write a poem about you. The world is a messed up place. Rolled off your tongue like a arrogant excuse. It's easy to say that when drone strikes aren't leveling your block in Brooklyn, when stop and frisk isn't haunting your every move, when your baby's blood-splattered body isn't plastered onto your Park Slope Avenue. Black men make up 40% of the US prison population. Nearly half for drugs white men abuse at a higher rate. Drunk driving kills more than crack, but DUIs don't attract 5-year sentences. Don't see Jim Crow signage in courtyards, but the same structures still shackle the ankles of Black inmates. We spend $2.1 million a year in the US to put a soldier in Afghanistan. $35,000 to lock a Black kid up with racist laws. Less than half of that on education, and only $15,000 on a minimum wage job. Pundits pontificate on the colorblind era we live in, where race gets thrown out of the class struggle and intersecting systems of oppression gets no airtime. The world, it's a messed up place. And you seem to be profiting nicely. Noise-canceling headphones blocking out ambulance and police sirens, and the faint distance, a Palestinian kid was shot in the back. The bullet, subsidized by your tax dollars. The guy who used to deliver your weed was just sentenced to 8 years in prison with no priors. The drone buzzing, it'll be heard one day over Brooklyn, but it'll skip your gentrified neighborhood. You have nothing to worry about. We don't want this messed up world to crash your baby's lullaby. So I think it was mentioned, I'm on the organizing committee for the U.S. campaign for the academic and cultural boycott of Israel. I also work with PACB, the Palestinian campaign for the academic and cultural boycott of Israel, as well as Adala New York, which is a local BDS group. So anybody that doesn't know what BDS is, living in the United States and through the Harper government, Jason Kenney, now Trudeau, he's fucking terrible, but yes, all of it. In the US, we give Israel $3.4 billion a year in military aid. We send over Apache helicopters and Hellfire missiles. We act as Israel's veto inside of the UN and protector throughout the world. So what Palestinians have said is like, look, we're not victims in need of aid, we're an occupied people in need of freedom, and your tax dollars, your community investments, and your campus investments are standing in the way of that freedom. So in 2005, Palestinian civil society called for boycott, divestment, and sanctions against the state of Israel until it complied with 3 basic demands. Number 1, ending the occupation of all Arab land and taking down of the apartheid wall in accordance with the 2004 International Court of Justice ruling. Number 2, the right of return for Palestinian refugees, 750,000 who were ethnically cleansed in 1948, and waves of ethnic cleansing that have taken place throughout. And number 3, equality for all Palestinians living inside of the state of Israel who face more than 50 laws that systematically discriminate against them in terms of labor, education, marriage, and other aspects of society. For anybody that doesn't know how divestment operates, whether that relates to prisons, fossil fuels, or Israeli occupation, let's say your university invests in Caterpillar. Caterpillar sends over armored and D9 militarized bulldozers to the Israeli state. Those bulldozers are used to bulldoze homes, uproot olive trees, kill American citizens like Rachel Corrie. But as we talk about the connections and people joining up and struggling together, there's a lot of corporations that are profiting off of multiple systems of oppression. So when you look at HP, you tend to think of printers, particularly in the United States. HP works with the Department of Homeland Security, but also sends over biometric technology to the state of Israel to segregate Palestinians within the West Bank and enhance the naval blockade of the Gaza Strip. You have companies like G4S, which Amanda talked about, and I'll also talk about a little bit in my talk, that operates in prisons in the US, in Palestine, in South Africa, and elsewhere. You have companies like Elbit Systems, which operates on the US-Mexico border, and also does drone manufacturing in Palestine. So this piece is called This Divestment Bill Hurts My Feelings. And it's about campus divestment. Now, a lot of Zionist students will be like, this divestment bill hurts my feelings, and we should come together, and you like hummus, I like hummus. Look, an apartheid wall just fell. It doesn't actually work like that, that's weird. So I wrote this poem saying why they're racist. So it'll be done in 2 different voices. The first will be like the student voice, Saya, Kaya, SPHR, we had SJP, Students for Justice for Palestine, or me, I mean I'm 34, so I'd be like a triple PhD. And then the Zionist voice, which is like terrible. You should be able to tell the difference between the 2 voices. If you can't, I fucked up. Why wasn't there a JDL demo here? I feel like poets never get disrupted. Like, do I need to like tweet, like I'm gonna be talking mad shit about Israel, come disrupt my event? Like just because I'm not sitting at a panel doesn't mean my shit's not offensive. I mean to you, not you, but them, because they're racist, not because it's actually offensive. Okay, good. This divestment bill, it hurts my feelings. That Caterpillar bulldozer ended life, and the body of an American citizen, drove her bones into the ground while a company cashed in on the sale. The claws of D9 bulldozers unearthed the livelihood of occupied Palestinians, uprooting their graveyards to make way for illegal settlements. But we need a positive campus climate. While HP stock rises on division, producing technology to segregate Palestinians, biometric IDs at checkpoints, enhancing the naval blockade of an open-air prison, Palestinians on campus, they listen to words like positive, climate, hurt feelings, knowing their tuition invests in companies raining terror on loved ones. That's suffering. Like their voices. It's non-existent to student board members looking for cushy jobs at top 5 law firms. But this divestment bill, it's divisive. The Montgomery bus boycott, divisive. The Great Boycott, one-sided. Abolishing slavery, radical. Nelson Mandela, a terrorist. Indigenous, savages, women's suffrage, complicated, desegregation, provocative, Hiroshima security, internment camps of necessity, Bantustan autonomy, Iraq liberation, Palestine barren. There is always going to be an excuse. Catchphrases, talking points, strip away names and faces. We are being militant, unreasonable. There's context to this oppression. The word apartheid, it makes you feel uncomfortable. It's apartheid, by definition, fits the 73 Convention, by law. It is a crime against humanity. 2 sets of laws for 2 people: labor, land ownership, access to education, 50 laws of discrimination, 66 years of colonization, 27,000 homes demolished, nearly 1 million arrested since '67. Whoa, whoa, whoa. No one said Israel doesn't have problems. But why are they singling out on college campuses? You mean like Darfur? Tibet? South Africa? Sweatshops? Coca-Cola? Animal testing? The Keystone Pipeline? The prison industrial complex? Fossil fuels? Teacher unions? University cuts? And bottled water? The real question: why are you singling out any injustice for protection? Let me get the next one for you. Israel is democratic. Democratic like coal is clean, Miller Lite is the same great tasteless filling, and McDonald's salads are healthy. These are not imagined scenarios. Our tuition dollars are profiting off of debt. Divestment is the next step. This is not about a nation or a people, but what's being done to people. This university will not liberate anyone, but it can choose to cease making a buck off of misery. Vote yes for divestment, no to appeasement. Affirming injustice isn't positive for any climate. Okay, yeah, little context. I can skip over this part, but I will talk about the video. I'll talk about it with my talk. I was one of the organizers and co-writers with Christian Davis Bailey and Marty Morales Williams of the video. It was conceived by Noor Erkat, who I think was here last month. It was in collaboration with Black Youth Project 100, the Dream Defenders. It's starting. Black Youth Project 100, Dream Defenders, Institute for Middle East Understanding, Eric Arts Institute, DC Palestine Film Festival, Jewish Voice for Peace, a lot of other badass people. I hope you enjoy it.
When I see them, I see us.
Every 28 hours, a black life is stolen by police or vigilantes in the U.S.